shall find it. He shall gain the whole world and lose his own soul. Or what shall a man give in exchange for his soul? For the Son of Man shall come in the glory of his Father with his angels, and then he shall reward every man according to his works. Verily I say unto you, there be some standing here which shall not taste of death till they see the Son of Man coming in his kingdom. And so the question that we want to look at this morning is following the King worth it? Is following the King worth it? Let's go ahead and pray and ask God to bless this message. Father, we love you, and God, we are so thankful for your goodness. We're thankful for your mercy and your love. And Lord, thank you that we've been able to sing your praises this morning, Lord, as we've joined together. And Lord, what a beautiful thing it is, Lord, for people to be one in you. And Lord, I pray that today we'd be in unison with you, Lord, and I pray that your word would speak to us, encourage us, convict us. I pray that it would empower us this morning. God, I pray that you would move me aside, Lord. I know that I'm weak. I know that I am really incapable of doing anything on my own. And so, God, I ask that your word, your spirit would be the ones who are speaking, that it would be you. And Lord, as John the Baptist said, I must decrease and he must increase. And so, God, I pray that would happen this morning. Lord, I pray that you would be with all of our needs that we have here. Lord, sometimes we get so upset, so inundated with all of these things that are coming in our lives, and Lord, sometimes it's so hard to even see you. And so, God, I pray that this morning for those who are struggling, Lord, I pray that they would see you clearly, and I pray that you're up. Last week we talked about how Jesus told his disciples, listen, you're not going to tell anybody that I'm the Christ. Not yet. It's not time for that yet. He said, I'm going to go, I'm going to die, and I'm going to rise again. And so he's already got the disciples frazzled. They're not understanding anything. And that's when old Peter said, no, there's no way that's going to happen to you, Lord. I'm not going to allow that to happen. And Jesus said, listen, you need to get behind me, Satan. You're not listening. You're not paying attention to what's good for you. And so then he begins to tell his disciples, and this isn't the first time that he's told them this. We look back in Matthew chapter 10, and we saw the same thing, but Jesus adds to that. In chapter 10, he talked about coming after him and denying himself and taking up his cross. And then he goes into this really a cost-benefit analysis, and today we are going to be looking at two different analyses. That's a big word that I don't use very often. We're going to be looking at two different cost-benefit analyses that are going to help us to see, is choosing the King worth it? And so the first thing we want to look at this morning is choosing our own way. And we're going to look at the cost-benefit analysis. Now, I'm not a businessman. I'd probably be a poor businessman. I'd definitely be poor if I were a businessman. But one thing that you have to know as a businessman, you have to know, is it worth it? Is buying this, is investing to make the cost that is right now, is it going to make this investment worth it in the end? And so they do a cost-benefit analysis. And so that's what we want to do today. And first, we want to look at choosing your own way. Now, there's a lot of people that like the idea of choosing their own way. As John Bon Jovi said, it's my life. And, well, he's wrong. Frank Sinatra, who said, I did it my way, he's wrong. But when we look at it, it sounds like it's a great thing. It's my life. I want to live the way that I want to live. And so Jesus says, he tells his disciples, if any man will come after me, let him deny himself and take up his cross and follow me. And then he says, for whosoever will save his life shall lose it, and whosoever will lose his life for my sake shall find it. And then he says this, for what is a man profited? What is the profit in all of this? If it's my life, I want to look at how is it going to benefit me? How is it going to profit me if I live my life the way that I want? And so first, for this section, we want to look at the benefit of choosing for myself. Is it for me? What am I going to gain out of it? And first, we can look and we can say, well, I get to live as I want. I get to live however I please. If I don't choose Christ, then I get to pick the way that I live. I get to do whatever I want to do. It's seemingly we get to do whatever we want to do. If it's my life, if it's for me, that sounds really good, right? I mean, excuse me. As believers, we know that sin is bad, but we also have to understand that sin gives pleasure for a season. And so for right now, in this moment, we can look at it and we can say, hey, it's my life. I can live as I want. I can do as I want. And everything is going to turn out just fine. Not only that, but I actually get to be my own God. If I'm not going to follow Christ, if I'm going to choose my own way, I get to be my own God. I get to please myself. I get to worship myself. I get to do whatever I want to do. I get to live however I want, and I get to worship whoever I want. And most of the time that is choose myself. I'm not going to choose to worship anybody else. I'm going to choose to worship myself. Now, in that, there's a whole lot of different avenues that we can go, but it's leading to the same path. Because there's a lot of people who will choose to worship themselves and still find themselves enriched in relationship, but religion, because it feels good. I like to go down to the church Ruth. I am going to live my own way. I'm going to live however it feels right for me, and I'm going to have my own goals. And so when it's my life, when it's all about me, then it seems like I get to do whatever I want to do. It's my life. It's my life. But as I said, John Bon Jovi was wrong. It's my life, or is it really my life? Because not only do we have to look at the benefits, but we have to look at the cost. So I've only watched Shark Tank a couple times. Some of y'all watch that all the time, and I think it's a pretty neat show. Y'all know what this is, right? Am I the only person who's ever seen this show? Nod, no. Okay, well, it's the thing where these investors are sitting up there, and these people who have this great invention, this great idea, they come and they show it. This is what my new invention does. This is how it's going to revolutionize this industry. And they're like, great. It looks wonderful. How much? And they're like, well, it cost $1 million to produce 2 of them. And they're like, no, we're not going to do that. Because the benefit sounds really good, but then the cost behind the production, it makes no sense. The benefit does not outweigh the cost in it. And so when we look at the cost-benefit analysis of serving ourselves, we quickly find out that in the end, it is not worth it, because it's not my life. And Jesus tells us, he gives us this negative paradox. Side of it, we see that if you protect your life, it's actually a loss of life. And it makes no sense. Jesus said in verse 25, for whosoever will save his life, and that means to protect his life for himself, whoever does that, he's going to lose it. Now, that doesn't sound good to me. But if I get to do whatever I want, I get my whole life to live however I want, and that sounds really good. But then if you're living for yourself, if you're saving yourself, you are going to lose it. It will be gone. There won't be any benefit in the end. There might be a temporary, momentary benefit, but when you look at the cost, at the absolutely no way that you'd want to do that. This paradox makes it, so protecting my life, I'm actually going to lose it. That's what Jesus says. But then he also says that there's not only a negative paradox, but there's a negative, what shall a man give in exchange for his soul? For the Son of Man shall come in the glory of his Father with his angels, and then he shall reward every man according to his works. So Jesus promises that there's going to be a judgment. There's going to be, we're going to look at another judgment later, but here he's talking about this negative judgment. It's not a reward, it's a recompense. This is bad. We're getting what we deserve. And he says if you are going to save your own life, if you're going to protect yourself, if you're going to live your way, you're going to lose it. And he says there is going to be a reward for that said action. But not only that, he says, what could a man give in exchange for his own soul. I want you to think about that. If you were to have a list, if you could start compiling a list today, and you could think back of every possession you have ever owned. So like, first thing that popped in my mind right there was my 1991 Dodge Dynasty that I got for graduating 10 years after that car was made. It was, I think my dad bought it for $600. It said 147,000 miles on the odometer, but I know it ran 100,000 miles after that odometer stopped working. The ignition there was a problem that we'd be driving down 52 and it just shut off. We'd have to pop it in neutral, shake the ignition switch a little bit and turn it back on, and then put it in drive, we'd be good. Angie hated that car. But I'll think about that. Just think about the cars that you've had in your past. And just the cars, okay? And then think about the houses, or let's even add the houses that you rented, the houses that you lived in growing up. Think about all the toys that you had when you were a kid. Think about all of the everything that you've ever had in your life. The food that you have had, the places that you've been to. Think about the vacations that you've taken. Think about everything that you had, every job that you have had, every penny that you have earned in your life. Think about everything that you have ever had. It says, for what is a man profited if he shall gain the whole world and lose his own soul? Or what shall a man give in exchange for his soul? So I want you to think about everything that you have ever amassed in your life, everything that you have ever owned, or everything that you have ever desired to own. If you've ever looked at somebody's house and been like, man, I wish I could live there. We watched a video on Facebook the other day, and I was like, oh my goodness, why in the world would you, how could you live in this place? It doesn't even make sense. But we look at all of this stuff, and we're like, I have it all. And you look at billionaires, and they're like, what else do I need? Except they always want more and more and more. Because nothing ever will satisfy our need. But he says, if you should gain the whole. Now, Jesus had this opportunity when he was being tempted. If you remember, Satan took him up to the mountain. He's like, I'm just going to show you everything in this world, and it'll be yours. All you got to do is just bow down and worship me. Jesus had that opportunity. But a lot of people are working for that opportunity. They're looking for that opportunity to please themselves by having it all. And maybe you say, well, I don't need it all, but I want this, and I need ease, I need comfort, I need this, and I need that. And we can look at everything that we could ever have in our lifetime, or everything that we could ever want in our lifetime. And nothing would be worth your soul. If you could get up to heaven with everything standing outside the gates, and like I said last week or the week before, Peter is not the one standing by the pearly gates. But if he were, and you're like, Peter, look at all of this stuff that I've got. Look at everything that I've ever earned. Surely this will be enough to pay for my soul to enter into heaven. And no, it ain't gonna happen like that. What shall a man give in exchange for his soul? Nothing. Nothing. It's not our life. We look at everything that has ever happened, but you can go all around the world and see different types of scenery. You can see desert. You can see mountains. You can see beaches. You can see all kinds of things. You can see animals. You can see trees, and nothing and everything that I just mentioned, nothing would be worth your soul. It doesn't even come close to what God thinks of you. And I think that's pretty cool. What can a man give in exchange for his own soul? It's because our soul has value. Did you know that? Value in God's eyes. Now, we look at ourselves and we say, well, we're just sinners saved by grace, but we're made in the image of God. We are image bearers of the Most High. He created us because He wanted to create us. And by the way, our soul is important because our soul is from Him. That He breathed into Adam the breath of life, and he became a living soul. And here we are today, a living soul, because of what God has done for us 6,000 years ago. Your life, No matter what you think of it right now, your life has value. It has purpose. And he says that nothing on this planet, if you had the whole world, you could not exchange that for your soul. There's nothing that could make that payment because our soul is from him. But so many people, they don't care. Life my way, because it's my life. I can do whatever I want. And they think that they have this power to live however they want. But the choice of not following Christ does not give us power. It only enslaves us. It enslaves us to sin. And so if we think that we're doing things our way, we think that we're doing it the way that we want, what we are doing is only doing the way that Satan wants us to do. The Bible says in Ephesians chapter 2 that every one of us as believers at one point in our life, and so that means any non-believer, wherever they're at in their life, they're doing everything for the prince of the power of the air. The one who now works in the spirit, in the children of disobedience. He is the one who is telling us where to go and how to go. Now again, it may look different. It may look different for different people. You may struggle with different things in your life. But in the end, you are doing what Satan wants you to do if you are choosing to go the other way. And in the end, the cost benefit, it is not good for the one who chooses to follow themselves. So then we look at the cost-benefit analysis of choosing the king's way. And so I think we got to look at the cost. The cost, Jesus says, he says in verse 24, if any man will come after me, let him deny himself and take up his cross and follow me. Now, what he says here is if any man will come after me, and that's in a sense of wanting a relationship with him. If any man will come after me, just like one day Danny Ball with his mullet, he came after Rosetta and that old blue truck, man, he was the man. All right, he came after it because he saw something in Rosetta. He's like, yeah. But if any man will come after Christ, if any man will go after Christ, there's only one way that we can get there. Only one way that we can get to the place of following him, get into the place in this relationship with him. All right, so when I was trying to court my wife, we never courted, I don't even know what that means. Froggy went a-courting. When I was trying to, like, all right, I like Angie, man, I didn't know what to do. I didn't know how to act, and I couldn't brain what to say to be like, hey, you want to go on a date with me? Like, it just, my mind didn't work that way. And so it took me a long, long time to figure it out. But Christ, he goes ahead and tells us up front, if you want to be in a relationship with me, this is what it takes. There is a cost involved. And the first cost, he says, let him deny himself. Now, does this mean self-denial or denial of self? Now, so there's a lot of people who be like, well, if I'm going to, what Christ is saying is that we can't eat and we can't do this and we can't do that. But that's not what it's talking about. It's talking about denying ourself. Ourself is that attitude that we looked at that says, it's my life, I'll do with it what I want. I'm gonna live however I want. And so it's not, well, if I serve Christ, then I've got to give up red meat or something like that. It's that I am denying who I am. I am giving up myself so that I can live in him. But that's a cost, isn't it? That is a big, big cost. And we've got to consider that cost when we want to come to Christ. We say it's no longer me, but I'm living for him. It's no longer my wants and my needs. It's what's his will for my life. And so we have to be yielded to him. It's not our life when we follow Christ. It's our life that is yielded to Christ. So we've got to come with a denial of self, that we're not going to live for us anymore. And that involves taking up the cross. Taking up the cross. Now, I know like people make a lot of jokes about the cross that we have to bear, and it usually has to do with a spouse. And that's not what this is talking about. The cross. Now again, when we look at the Bible, it's pretty helpful that we're looking back at this, right? I mean, it's simple for us to be like, oh, we know what this is talking about, but the disciples, they were in the moment, and the cross had not yet come. Jesus had just told them that he's going to suffer many things of the elders and chief priests and scribes and be killed and be raised again on the third day. At this point that he's going to the cross, but he take up his cross. Now, in that time, when somebody would talk about a cross, it wasn't the hope that we have in Christ because he died on the cross.